You're not lazy, you're not broken, you're not lost. You've simply stopped performing. And that is the most dangerous moment in the awakening journey. When facing the shadow, we all hope that light will come rushing in. We think that if we're brave enough to look into the unconscious, into our wounds, our hidden parts will be liberated, healed, and become an awakened version of ourselves. But no one tells you this. Right after you take off the final mask, what hits you first isn't light, it's emptiness. A deep, vast silence with no goal, no motivation, no clear direction. And in that moment, you start to wonder, did I do something wrong? Am I falling backward? Or am I just falling? If you're in that strange space where everything that once felt right, like success, productivity, reputation, suddenly feels meaningless, you are not alone. You are entering a winter of the soul, a period Carl Jung called the dissolution of the persona, the mask you wore your whole life to be loved, accepted, and to survive. And when that mask falls, no divine light appears immediately. Only absence. Not the absence of motivation, but the withdrawal of the false self. And that is the true beginning of the real journey, the journey back to your authentic self. Jung once wrote, individuation doesn't begin with finding yourself. It begins with losing yourself. Many believe that healing is a straight line from suffering to happiness. But the truth, like all processes in nature and spirituality, is that it's a spiral. We don't ascend, we descend inward into the deepest layers of the self where all borrowed motivations fall away and all externally imposed goals dissolve. And the most important thing, this is not depression, it's a sign of transformation. We live in a culture that worships constant movement, where rest is labeled laziness and silence is mistaken for being lost. But the soul has its own rhythm. Just like nature has winter, a time when everything goes, still sinks low and prepares for quiet rebirth. You are in that phase, and no, you are not going the wrong way. You are more aligned than ever before. So what's really happening inside you when all motivation disappears? Why is this emptiness actually a sign of spiritual maturity? And how can you walk through this inner wilderness without collapsing? In the next section, we'll decode the psychological phenomenon that many awakening souls are experiencing using Jung's own words. The sacred void, the holy emptiness between your old ego and the true self that's waiting to be born. Don't look away. Because if you're in that hazy place right now, this video might be the whisper your deepest self has been waiting to hear. We often think motivation is something we're born with, that if we lose passion, inspiration, or a sense of purpose, it means something is wrong with us. But Carl Jung would disagree. In his words, what you're experiencing isn't losing your way. It's the first stage of separation from the persona, the social mask you've worn for too long. Persona, according to Jung, is not the enemy. It's a necessary armor when we're still young, a role we must play to survive in society. But that armor was only meant to be temporary. The problem is we've forgotten how to take it off. Signs that your persona is dissolving and you think you're broken. You wake up without a reason to get out of bed. Things that once excited you, like achieving KPIs, being praised, or being the best, now feel meaningless. Your body feels heavy, your mind foggy, like there's mist inside your head. You're not sad, you're not happy, you're just disconnected from yourself. Physically, you may have trouble sleeping or sleep too much, feel short of breath when thinking about responsibilities, feel emotionally numb after scrolling social media, experience mild headaches, especially when making decisions. Many people mistake this for depression, but the difference is you don't want to die. You just don't know how to live the old way anymore. Why modern culture makes us panic when emptiness appears? We live in a culture where a person's value is tied to productivity. From childhood, we learn to be good equals to be loved, to be busy equals to be useful, to achieve equals to be worthy. So when those beliefs start to crack, no one tells us what to do. And when motivation fades, fear rushes in. If I'm not doing anything, who am I? If I have no goals, am I worthless? Carl Jung called this moment falling into the unconscious, when the ego must admit it's not in control of the entire self. And the ego doesn't like that. It resists, it panics, it tries to pull you back to the old role. But it's like trying to wear clothes you've outgrown, they no longer fit, and the deeper part of you knows it. The silent death of a version of you once loved. There's a unique kind of grief here, the grief of saying goodbye to the you once admired. Maybe you were the helper, the one who always had answers. Maybe you were the star, energetic, driven a leader. And now you just want quiet. You don't want to help. You don't want to become anything anymore. You think you're selfish, lazy, or not yourself. But the truth is you've never been more yourself than right now. You're just finally meeting the real you, the part that's been buried under the persona. Jung called this the beginning of individuation, the journey toward a whole undivided self. If you're in this stage, I want you to know, you're not lost. You're in the middle of awakening. There are thousands out there just like you, quietly going through the same thing. But no one talks about it, because no one wants to admit they've lost motivation. So let this space be a place of refuge. Comment if you're going through this stage. Share one sign you have experienced so others don't feel alone. And if you've moved through it, share a word of encouragement or advice. You don't need to be stronger. You just need to stop fighting yourself. In the next section, we'll step into a new chapter, redefining motivation, when the fire isn't a blaze but a gentle hearth, where you'll learn motivation hasn't disappeared. It's just retreating inward to be reborn into something softer, more sustainable, and more true. Don't walk away from this journey, because what's being born inside you is your true self. Redefining motivation, from raging fire to life-giving flame. Meet Sarah again, beyond the mask. Remember Sarah, the woman who always needed to be needed. When that motivation burned out, she didn't just lose her volunteering role, it spilled over into every part of her life. She began withdrawing from social gatherings. She felt uneasy when friends asked, "Why have you been so quiet lately?" She had an identity crisis. If I'm not the helper anymore, then who am I? Sarah spent long evenings on the couch, staring at the empty screen of her phone. Everything, her family, her career, felt meaningless. But in that silence, she began to hear a whisper from within. What do I truly enjoy? What is real meaning? Can I be myself without proving anything? Redefining motivation. Conditional versus authentic motivation. Sarah's old motivation, maybe just like yours, came from needing to be accepted and useful. That's conditional motivation. If I'm good enough, I'll be loved. But authentic motivation doesn't ask what you must do to earn love. It simply says, I do this because I love it. In that moment of freedom, Sarah didn't go into the kitchen to cook lunch for the volunteer team. She cooked for herself and found joy simply tasting her favorite meal just for her. The journey begins with small steps. You don't need to transform overnight. You just need to notice where you're still trying to prove yourself and ask, am I at ease doing this? Do one small thing that's just for you. Listen to music, write in a journal, paint something. Then write down how it made you feel. Was it lighter? Was it more real? Sarah started by walking aimlessly, just listening to the sound of leaves. Then quiet nights reading, not to learn, not to grow, but simply to read. Her first reaction was guilt. I feel bad for not doing anything. But she kept choosing nothing, and slowly she discovered a gentle flame, not wild, not rushed, but always present. Symbols and inner light. Jung described authentic motivation like a hearth fire, steady, warm, enduring. You can feel this when you enjoy deep conversations, not to build your identity, but to connect. You plant something, listen to music, or write feelings without performance. You say no to things that exhaust you and feel peace because the no came from your soul, not your ego. Sarah began to see her relationship with her mother differently, not needing to be recognized, but seeking to be understood. She stopped trying to fix everything. When she did offer help, it came from love, not a hunger to be needed. Rebirth through inner connection. True motivation doesn't come from words or plans. It grows when you let yourself be quiet for 5 minutes a day. You allow today to be good or bad without forcing meaning. You let yourself fail without calling it failure. After a few weeks, Sarah began to sleep better. She felt more grounded at work, more patient with her students, more present when they spoke. Motivation didn't come from should do, it came from want to. Sarah's story might be your story or someone you love. Leave a comment. Sarah, I feel like I know you. Or I'm in a similar place and I feel, or simply, I'm slowing down and finally meeting my real self. Every comment is a gentle flame that spreads, and you might be the spark for someone else's awakening. In the next part, we'll explore how to keep that gentle flame alive, how to build lasting inner strength that isn't tied to outer success but flows from your deepest truth. If this touched something in you, don't walk away, because what's blooming inside you is a self you never knew you had. You've taken the first steps of your journey, recognizing the breakdown of the persona, redefining motivation from external blaze to inner flame. Now you're reaching the final threshold, the most difficult phase where the ego resists with all its might. And we're going to decode it together. The ego's resistance, The final armor. After you stop performing and begin to sense your inner fire, don't be surprised if a deep part of you starts screaming, louder than ever. That's your ego. The ego is used to controlling how you appear, what results you achieve, and how you feel. And when it sees you no longer perform the way you used to, it panics, terrified that you'll lose value, status, and safety. How does this resistance show up? Sudden irritability without clear cause. You might snap at loved ones, colleagues, or yourself. Mental chaos. I'm failing. I've done nothing. I'm falling behind. Harsh self-judgment, even when you're simply resting or doing something unproductive. Flipping between complete silence and hyperactivity as the ego tries to reignite the external blaze. If not addressed properly, this resistance can lead you to return to the old formula, doing more out of guilt for doing nothing. Fall into emotional turmoil, anxiety, insomnia, or worse, letting fear take over again and dragging you back into the old rat race. Meet resistance with grounded presence. Jung called this the final confrontation between the conscious and the unconscious, where you don't fight the ego, you face it. Observe the resistance with gentleness. Instead of fighting, become the observer. Ask, what shape does resistance take today? Is it restless sleep? Is it looping self-critical thoughts? Is it a wave of emptiness urging you to give up? Write them down. Name each feeling, each spark of anger, and look at them like an old friend you understand. You don't need to erase them. You only need to be present with them. Consciousness is always in the service of the inner self. Jung C.W. Volume 12. Inner affirmation. Each morning speak gently to yourself. I know you're afraid. I won't pay with my soul. We are walking this path together. You're not arguing with the ego. You're speaking to the self. You're becoming the one that doesn't fight but simply is. Integrating the ego. To walk lighter further, the goal is not to eliminate the ego, but to form a wise alliance between your authentic self and your social self. A small practice to deepen awareness. Each time you feel the need for validation arise, pause and ask, what's the truth underneath? Then ask, why am I doing this, for whom? If the answer is for others, ask again, how would I feel if I didn't do it? You're training yourself to listen to the ego but not be ruled by it. The symbol of the bridge. A powerful Jungian symbol is the bridge, the space between two shores. You, like a bridge, remain connected to society, but not from the ego's need to prove. You connect through presence, empathy, and inner stability. When you see these struggles as not just yours, you begin to understand the strength of shared humanity. If you've ever had sudden bursts of anger, felt uneasy just because you were doing nothing, experienced a mental blankness or emotional drop, comment below what you're feeling or ask a question about how your ego is resisting you. Every comment is a brick building a community of souls returning to themselves. And you're not just a seeker, you're a keeper of the flame for others. In the next chapter, we'll explore spiritual grounding, Sunday silence, journaling rituals, daily self-anchoring, how to turn your inner flame into a steady guiding light, how to overcome the pit, the emotional collapse the ego can cause if you lack spiritual allies. If you want step-by-step guidance to build your inner fire form, effortless rituals, and live from your true self, stay with me. David's journey, from success formula to authentic presence. David, the man once seen as the model of productivity. David, 32, a software engineer in Seattle, built his life around the pursuit of success. Everything was mapped out, 5-year plans, optimized products, perfect networking, quantified health metrics. People admired him, his boss valued him, colleagues saw him as the symbol of ambition. But deep inside, he always wondered, is this really me? Until one day his father, the person he respected most, suddenly passed away after a morning run. David didn't collapse. He didn't quit or scream. Instead, something inside quietly cracked. Work, from performance to presence. After the loss, David still went to work, but he no longer burned out for achievements. Instead, he practiced listening more deeply in meeting, speaking only when he truly felt something, working not to prove himself, but because the task held meaning, even if small. Colleagues noticed he wasn't competing anymore, yet still performed well. He shared more of his personal experiences. He wasn't trying to look successful, but somehow his presence became more magnetic. Relationships, from playing roles to soulful connection. David used to hold an image, believing he had to be the strong one. With his girlfriend, he tried to be a hero, rarely showing inner emotions. With friends, he kept his distance, didn't want to be a burden. With family, he supported everyone, but never let himself feel vulnerable. After the shift that changed, he cried when he missed his father. He opened up about his grief with his girlfriend. He called home not with a tough facade, but with honesty. I'm scared. It didn't make him weaker. It made him deeper. Relationships became driven by soul, not performance. His relationship with himself, from achiever to inner listener. David had always lived by a checklist, but one day he suddenly realized he didn't know what he wanted to do on a weekend. He didn't know what he liked when he wasn't being useful. He had forgotten what it felt like to speak from the heart. He paused, not to seek a new direction, but simply to ask, what do I want today? He walked, stopped at a random cafe, let his heart rest in silence. He didn't need an answer right away. He just listened like listening to breath. And that felt enough, peaceful, a quiet inner voice. Even after all these shifts, there were still days David felt bound, feeling guilty for not being productive, wanting to return to optimizing everything, feeling anxious for no longer being the one in control. That's the ego clinging, trying to protect itself from uncertainty. It's the final resistance before one fully lives from the self. David gently confronted it. He wrote in his journal, "Sorry I didn't perform today, but I'm still me." He meditated not to calm down, but to feel the sound of falling leaves to touch his soul. And he realized when he faced his own fear, he was showing the ego who's really in charge, not through force, but presence. He wasn't alone. There were people who said, "You've changed, but you're still here." In this video, if you've ever felt the need to step back because expectations overwhelm you, the urge to go quiet when everyone demands answers, the desire to bring your soul into your work, but the pressure pulls you back into checklists. Comment below. Share if you see David in yourself. Every word you share can be a brick building a community where you and I are no longer ideal achievers, but humans returning to the self. Winter of the soul, the darkness before the dawn. When everything seems dead, there are moments when you feel like a leafless tree in the middle of winter. No new buds, no green leaves, no inner song. You used to run fast. Now you stand still. You used to know who you were. Now you're like a hollow shell drifting in space. But did you know it's precisely when the tree stands most barren that its roots dig deepest into the earth? This is not death. This is the phase of Negredo, the dark stage of spiritual alchemy. Negredo, the black stage of alchemy. In alchemy, Negredo is the first step of transformation where everything disintegrates, dissolves, loses its old form. It looks like destruction, but it's preparation for a higher reformation. Psychologically, this stage manifests as a deep sense of disorientation, no longer interested in things that once thrilled you, inner silence, with no name. Carl Jung called this the dark night of the soul, the night before the light. Not every soul passes through it, but those who do emerge into a light that no longer needs to be borrowed from the outside. Persephone, the goddess dragged into the underworld. Remember the Greek myth of Persephone, daughter of Demeter, the goddess of harvest, who was pulled into the underworld by Hades. When Persephone went below, the world fell into winter. No flowers bloomed, no crops grew, only dry soil and a gray sky. But did you notice Persephone didn't stay down there forever? She returned and brought spring with her. This story lives eternally in our collective unconscious because all of us at some point are Persephone pulled into darkness. We didn't choose only to return with a deeper self. Silence, not the enemy. Modern society teaches us to fear stillness. If you do nothing all day, you feel guilty. If you sit in silence, people say you're lazy. If you don't have clear goals, they think you're lost. But in deep spiritual traditions, stillness is not the enemy. It is the condition for the soul to be heard. When the noise of the ego goes quiet, that's when the archetypes speak. Jung wrote, "Only in darkness can the inner light be seen." Listen to the smallest inner movements. Instead of trying to escape this state, try sitting with it. Place your hand on your chest and ask, what is forming that I haven't yet seen? What part of me is asking to be heard? Maybe you'll feel a fleeting image from a dream, a childhood memory that rises unexpectedly, a quiet yet intense emotion from seeing a dewdrop on a leaf. These moments, small as they seem, are the language of the soul. If you are in an inner winter right now, you are not alone. There are thousands just like you quietly blooming in the dark. Share in the comments. Are you going through your own Negredo? What part of this touched your heart? Have you ever felt an archetype emerge in your life? Every word you write won't just help you connect with yourself. It might help someone silently watching this at midnight realize, oh, I'm not crazy. I'm being reborn. In the next section, we won't speak of what's ending. We'll speak of the returning light, not outer light, but the quiet ember burning from within, a motivation no longer rooted in fear, a life that comes from being yourself, not from what you must do. We'll explore together how to live with this new flame, sustainable, gentle, deep. How to not just return, but come home to the original self before the world gave us masks. If you've made it this far in the video, you're standing at a sacred doorway. Walk with me to the end of this path, because at the end is you in your most radiant form. You don't need to become someone else to live a meaningful life. You only need to return to yourself, the self that has been forgotten beneath layers of masks, roles, and expectations. It's not a coincidence that you passed through the dark night. It's not an accident that you found yourself in the void, because that very place is the soil your soul needs to plant the seeds of truth again. Carl Jung once said, "I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become." And now, as the voice of the ego quiets down, as the applause fades and the 5-year plan dissolves, you begin to hear something else, the voice of the soul. There's no need to rush. The return to your true self has no deadline. You don't need to achieve it this year or next month. It's not a goal, it's a way of living. It unfolds day by day in how you breathe, how you walk, how you quietly hold yourself when no one's looking. Share your story. Where are you on this journey? Have you ever fallen into a state of wanting nothing at all? Was there a moment in this video that made you stop and take a deep breath? Have you had a recurring dream symbol or image lately? Leave a comment not to impress, but to connect, to find others walking through the same shadows. Subscribe, but not just for content. Click subscribe if content like this awakens something deeper in you. Because we don't just learn through information, we learn through the feeling of being seen, being understood, being illuminated. If you feel touched, this space is for you. You are not alone. Wherever you are in the darkest night or at the edge of light, you're not walking alone. There is a quiet community of souls returning to themselves walking beside you. Let this video be a connection point, a mirror, a door. And remember, you don't need to find your motivation again, because true motivation never left you. It only stepped back waiting for you to stop running out of fear and start walking in truth. The fire will return, but it won't burn you this time, it will warm you. It won't scream, become someone. It will whisper, "You've always been enough."